Okay, hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Sally.
And welcome back to the ICE office. We are back here in our regular filming place after a very long time, and we are so excited to be back working together in the same place and to be bringing you your regularly scheduled ICE assembly videos.
So we've both been working from home in lockdown, and we know that a number of people are still working from home and having to stay at home to keep everyone safe. But isn't it wonderful that we can keep in touch with people even when we are at a distance? So we've been texting and calling and spending time on Zoom to stay in touch, and I'm sure that you've been doing the same with friends and family who don't live with you too. But it's actually quite a new thing that we can keep in touch by email and text and video message. Hundreds of years ago, people couldn't do that because the technology hadn't been invented. And so we're going to have a quiz now to see how people have sent messages across long distances across history. Okay, let's begin. The first long-distance phone call was made by Alexander Graham Bell, who actually invented the phone, and it was to his assistant. But what was said on that first phone call? Was it A, Sherlock, is this working? Was it B, Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you? Or was it C, help me Wiggins, I've locked myself in the bathroom?
Oh, I really want it to be C, but I don't know why he would have a telephone in the bathroom with him, because nowadays that's very easy to do, but I think when telephones were first invented they were maybe quite big. We've seen them get smaller, so I'm gonna go with A.
A, okay, that's Anne-Marie's guess. Sherlock, is this working? How about you? Make your guesses now. Okay, the answer was B.
B! Oh.
Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you.
Oh.
Very good guess though, very good
never mind.
guess. Question 2. Before people had invented writing, they used an instrument to send messages across long distances. But what instrument was it? Was it A, drums? Was it B, trumpets? Or was it C, maracas? Now take a moment to think about this.
I think I'm going to go with A, drums.
Okay, so you said A, drums, and it's A. It's
Woo!
drums. Tribes in Africa use drums called talking drums, and they'd send warnings or important information across long distances.
That's super cool.
500 years before Jesus was born, a Persian ruler was trying to overthrow a king, and he needed to send secret messages to his nephew. But how did he send those messages without getting caught? A, he wrote the messages in invisible ink.
Ooh, okay.
Or B, he tattooed the messages onto someone's head and then waited for the hair to grow back.
That's so ridiculous.
I know, right? Or was it C, he attached it to a pigeon's leg and let it fly away to his nephew?
Ooh, well, these were supposed to be secret messages.
Secret
right?
messages, yeah.
Okay. See, a pigeon isn't all that secret. And I think that maybe the tattooing it on someone's head would take a long time. So I guess I'm gonna go with A again.
Okay, so Anne-Marie is guessing A for Anne-Marie.
Yeah.
I wonder what your guess is, everyone watching. Okay, so the answer is B.
No
He
way!
tattooed it on someone's head, waited for the hair to grow back, and then when the guy got to his nephew, he just shaved his head and could read the message.
That would take so long.
I know, it's not like you can rub that message out either.
Right.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
That's how they did things many years ago. We don't send secret messages that way these days. Okay, so we're going a bit forward in time now. Question 4, to the time of Queen Elizabeth I. And in her time, spies would use the currents in the sea to send their messages in bottles to England. But there needed to be someone with a job of collecting those bottles in. What was their official title? A, the Fisher of Floating Flagoons. B, the Steward of Sea-Soaked Messages. That is a tongue twister. Try that one at home.
That's good. That's good.
Or C, the uncorker of ocean bottles.
Wow.
Make your guesses now.
I'm going to go with the tongue twister. I think it'd be...
The steward of sea-soaked messages?
Yes.
Oh, that was hard to say. I'm afraid to say it's C.
Oh,
the uncorker of ocean bottles. But I think all of those are awesome job titles.
They are. They're really good.
If you were a soldier on the Great Wall of China and you saw an enemy army approaching, how would you send a message to ask for help? A. You would light a fire and send up smoke. B. You would light a firework.
Okay.
Or C. You would lift up a brightly coloured banner. Make your guesses now.
I think we'll return to the good old A. I think the signal fires. Yeah.
You got it. Well done, Anne-Marie. Yes. At night time, the fires would be seen and you'd light the fires along the wall to get to help.
Yep.
And in daytime, the smoke would be a signal for help and you'd see that high up in the sky.
That makes sense. Yes.
Okay, so your score, Anne-Marie, was 2 out of 5, which it was a really hard quiz, so I think you deserve a pat on the back for that. And everyone watching, I wonder how you did.
So, you might not know this, but there are actually lots of stories about friendship in the Bible, and one of them in particular is about a guy called David and a guy called Jonathan. And there was a time when they needed to send a secret message to each other in order to keep David safe. And that's the story that we're going to look at today.
This is David. And this is Jonathan. They were the best of friends. Jonathan liked David so much he even gave him his princely sword and armour. David was a shepherd and a musician. Jonathan was a prince. Here's his father, King Saul. Saul wasn't a very good king. God had promised that he would make David king instead, because David had a heart like God's. David and Jonathan promised each other to always take care of each other. Saul once liked David quite a lot, but his heart was filled with jealousy because God was going to make David king. Things went bad quickly, and soon Saul was plotting to have David killed. So David spoke to Jonathan about it. He said, "Hey, bro, what have I done wrong? Your dad's trying to have me killed." Jonathan answered, "Whoa, really? That can't be right. He never does anything without telling me." Well, David said, "It's true. He won't say anything to you because he knows we're friends and he doesn't want to upset you." Jonathan answered, "Well, you'd know I'd tell you right away if I discovered something like this. Let's come up with a plan to see how he really feels." There was a festival on that week. People would feast and celebrate together. The two friends planned to hide David and see what Saul said about him not being at the festival. Jonathan said, "If he's okay with you missing the festival, then we know that you're okay and it's safe. If he gets mad, then we'll know he means trouble." But David said, "But how will I know this message? How will you get it to me if I'm in hiding? We can't let Saul find out." Jonathan thought for a while. Then he came up with an idea. "Here's what we'll do," he said. "When I know what my dad plans to do, I'll take my bow and arrow to the field where you hide. I'll take one of the runner boys with me to collect the arrows. When I shoot the arrows, if I say to the runner, 'They're on this side of you, bring them here,' then you know it's safe and you can come out of hiding. But if I say to the runner, 'Look, the arrows are further ahead of you,' Then you'll know that my dad has bad plans for you, and you must go and hide someplace safe." David agreed and went to wait in the field they agreed on. When it was time for the feast, King Saul noticed that David's seat at the table was empty. He thought that maybe something had happened to David to keep him from the feast. But the next day, as the festival continued, King Saul noticed once again David's seat was empty. He asked his son, Jonathan, where David was. "David asked my permission to spend the festival with his family. I said he could go, that's why he's not here," Jonathan answered. "What? I know you have chosen to be on his side," said Saul. "Don't you realise that if David becomes king, you will never rule this land?" But Jonathan cared more for David than he did about becoming king. "How could you plot such a thing? David hasn't done anything wrong." But Saul was so angry he threw his spear at his own son in a rage. So Jonathan escaped, and in the morning he took his bow and arrows and a runner boy and went to the field where David was hiding. He shot arrows as if he were practicing shooting at a target, and said to the runner boy, "Look, the arrows are further ahead of you. When you've collected the arrows, take my armour and weapons and go back to town." And when the runner boy was gone, David and Jonathan met together to say goodbye. They were both very sad and cried because of what Saul had planned to do, and because David had to go away. But they each made a promise to care for one another always, just as God cared for each of them. It wouldn't be the last time they would meet, but it was a difficult challenge for them both.
So David and Jonathan, in their friendship, faced huge challenges, didn't they? They needed to keep David safe, and they needed a way to keep that message secret without any mobile phones, or without any radio signals, or invisible ink, or any of those kinds of things. But Jonathan had a really good idea using what he had already. And because of that friendship that he shared with David, David was kept safe and eventually became king, just as God had promised. So, what can we learn from David and Jonathan's friendship for our friendships today? Well, first of all, they kept their promises to each other.
So we can be inspired by David and Jonathan to keep our promises to our friends as well.
That's right, and they weren't jealous of each other either, even though David becoming king meant that Jonathan wasn't going to be.
Yeah, so we can be inspired to celebrate the good things that happen to our friends. Jealousy spoils friendship, and that's a horrible feeling to carry around with you. So instead, celebrating with someone is a much better way to respond to those events happening in their lives.
Absolutely. And Jonathan was really brave. He stood up to his dad when he knew his dad was going to do something really wrong.
And sometimes being a good friend is being brave and standing up for our friends. Good friends protect each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, a great thing about David and Jonathan's friendship is they both knew that God was part of that friendship too, helping that friendship to grow stronger and last through all of these different challenges.
And Christians believe that we can ask God to help us in our friendships as well today. And one great way to do that is to pray for each other.
So, I wonder, what challenges do you face that a good friend might be able to help you out with? Or maybe what challenges do your friendships face together? And also, what can you do for a friend when times are hard?
Loving God, thank you for the friendship you have with us. We're sorry for the times when we aren't always good friends to you or each other. We know how important our friends are, so please help us to grow our friendships and make them strong enough to face any challenges we meet in the future. Amen.